Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, a podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your co-host, Ashley Kusi. We want to thank our listeners for the feedback and comments we received this week. We're working really hard on implementing them into our upcoming shows. If you have some critiques or feedback, you can send them to firstyearmarriage@gmail.com. We also want to give a shout out to Nomi2623 and Judo Cruz for leaving us a rating and review on iTunes this week. If you want to leave a rating and review, you can visit firstyearmarriage.com/iTunes. We thank you and have a fantastic week.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I am your host, Marcus Kusi, and today I'll be sharing the first year marriage story of Leslie Samuel. Leslie has been married for over 8 years to his beautiful wife, Marguerite. Together, they have a son and live in Michigan. Leslie is also a blogger who believes in changing the world one blog at a time and loves playing piano. Thank you today for coming on the show, Leslie. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met your wife?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Leslie Samuel. I live in Michigan right now, originally from the island of St. Martin. When I was 17, I moved to Michigan to go to college and the university. And I studied biology there, and I was very fascinated about that topic. And eventually I moved on to teach it. But while I was at Andrews University, that's when I met my wife. Because she's from the Bahamas and she went to Andrews University too. She was into music. I was into music. She's a singer and I'm a player. I play the piano and she sings. So I remember one day I went to a worship service and she sang there, and we had a conversation after the fact because she was looking for someone to play the piano for her, and I played the piano. So we kind of got into this conversation. One thing led to another. We became friends. Eventually, we were in a music group together, and that kind of really helped us to solidify our friendship. And then she was directing the group. I became a co-director with her. We really got to know each other much better in that process. And as a result of that and a number of other things, that's how we kind of got into this whole relationship thing.
How did Marguerite feel when you guys decided you were going to get together and be a husband and wife? Like, what was her reaction when you proposed to her?
Oh, man. I could remember it kind of like it was yesterday because I had this whole big thing that I planned, and it was a Friday night, and we were going to have worship with the group that we were a part of. But she didn't know that worship was actually like a surprise engagement party for her. So I brought her over to my place. We had worship together. We were singing. We were reading from the Bible. We were talking. We were doing all kinds of stuff. And then eventually I went down on one knee and I pulled it out. She knew that I was going to propose to her at some point. We kind of had that understanding, but she had no idea that the events that were happening that night were going to lead to this engagement. And she was excited. She was surprised. She was excited. She was overwhelmed. She started to cry. She said yes. And, it was just a beautiful thing.
I definitely can see how beautiful it is because you both sing and play the piano. So being able to do something in that manner, in that stature is something that I know she'll really love it too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So after you guys were married for your first year, how will you describe the marriage, everything that went through, like in terms of 1 or 2 words?
Oh, man. 1 or 2 words.
Yeah.
It was, I'm going to go with 3 words.
3, okay.
A learning experience. We enjoyed it. The first year wasn't really difficult. It was us getting to know each other better. It was us figuring out what each other liked and disliked and all that kind of stuff. And, we saw it really as a learning experience. How can we learn as much about each other as possible? So I think a learning experience is what I would describe it in 3 words.
Okay, so whilst you guys were learning everything about yourselves and about each other, was there any adjustments that you had to make?
Yes.
Can you share some of it with us?
Oh man. So obviously, if you're living with someone that's totally different from you, you're going to have different expectations. You're going to have different background experiences. Certain things that you expect that maybe they have no idea to expect. And just kind of navigating those types of things can be kind of interesting. Just simple things like, who's going to cook? Who's going to clean? Are we both going to do this? Are we both going to do that? Just figuring out those things and navigating through that was an interesting challenge, but it was a challenge that I kind of enjoy. I enjoy getting to know people in general, but getting to know this one person, even at a different level, to me it's an exciting thing.
Whilst you guys were exploring each other, can you give an example of an expectation that you had that Marguerite also had had a different view about it?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that it was interesting and it was kind of a struggle to kind of navigate it is, when I grew up in St. Martin, it was just the thing where it was the thing that the woman usually cooks, the woman usually cleans and those types of things. Now, I didn't expect her to do all of that, but I definitely expected more of that to be done than she expected. She grew up in a place where actually it was the exact opposite. Her dad was the one that did all the cooking and her mom didn't like cooking as much. So it was the exact opposite. And not that she expected me to do it, but she had more of an understanding that it was going to be something that's mutual. And that was something that for a while, it frustrated me. But then as we continue to grow and to talk and to just discuss these types of things, it became more of a beautiful thing where I reached to the point where I didn't expect her to be anything that she is not. And that was kind of a moment in time when things started to change in our relationship, where, it wasn't that, okay, this is the way I always knew it, so this is the way it's going to be. It's more of okay, so now that we're in this new relationship, how are we going to deal with X? How are we going to deal with Y and Z? And kind of figuring that out as if it's a new relationship, as if it's something that you are starting on together and not just something that you're carrying on from past experiences.
Once you guys figured out that you're going to sit down together and talk through things and make decisions together as a newlywed or as a newly married couple, can you give us one particular situation whereby you both sat down and brought your various views to be able to think together and come up with a solution to help you?
I am more of a numbers guy. However, I hate budgeting. It makes no sense. So, I'm excited by math and numbers and calculations and all that kind of stuff, but I just don't like to sit down and do that. But, you come to a point where you realize, well, if you don't do it, then it's not going to be done. And when I say you, I mean you as a couple. If you don't actually sit down and do it, as annoying as it might be, it can lead to more problems, more harm than good. So we had to reach to a point where we decided, we're gonna sit down once a month, and that's how much we were doing it at the time, and we're gonna discuss these things. And yes, it might be annoying, but hey, we gotta get through it. That is something that I remember that was an interesting thing to deal with. It's funny now though, because we've stopped doing that recently, and we need to get back to do it. But I remember how that was kind of one of those annoying things that it's like, oh man, we got to do this. Regardless of whether we enjoy it or not, we have to do it.
So did she have interest for doing the budgeting at all? Or you were the one who proposed that idea of doing a budget together?
We both knew that we had to do it. And she is definitely more of the idea that, listen, we really have to get this done. I'm kind of more of a laid back type of guy where it's kind of like, I know it's important, but hey, we got other things that we can do. So she is more of the, yes, this is something that's important. We need to get it done. I'm more of the laid back kind of guy. So it's kind of coming to that compromise and coming up with something that works for you.
That's pretty amazing. I'm glad you're both able to sit down and talk about your finances to be able to come with an agreement. Because I know with most marriages or most newlyweds, whilst going through those adjustments period, things get heated up when you sit down to talk about finances. And especially if one spouse has some hidden debt or hidden student loans hiding somewhere in the bringer. It brings a lot of confusion, which causes a lot of trouble in the marriage, and sometimes even causes divorces to happen, which is something that I'm hoping anybody out there who's listening, who's a newlywed, will be able to learn from my experience and be able to prevent such circumstances or situations from happening in their marriage also.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is we haven't figured it all out. And even the points that I bring up here, we don't have those done perfectly. We don't have those perfectly. We mess up all the time. But at least in our minds, we know that, listen, when we have these issues or these things that we need to figure out how to do, we're on the same page that we want what's best for our relationship and we want what's best for each other. So it's just making that effort, and just consciously making that effort is very important.
That's very, very true. So during your first year whilst you guys were married, did you encounter any difficulty or any hard moment or any struggle that you had to go through together, like a job loss?
Not anything as drastic as a job loss or anything of that sort. So in terms of challenges that we faced, and sometimes we still face it even more recently, one of the big things would be just going to the same topic, managing the finances. Because yes, when we got married, we just got into new jobs. However, we had old debts. And trying to navigate, saving this and paying this bill and that, the finances could be a huge strain on a marriage. And just figuring out how to navigate that can be a challenge. And it was a challenge for us. It still is a challenge at times, but you just make the best out of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So whilst you guys were going through these struggles, did you have to lean on a resource somewhere to help you guys go through managing your finances at all?
So one of the things that we did is we went through this course, Financial Peace University, by Dave Ramsey. It's a relatively popular course. A lot of people know about it. But we basically sat down and we watched this course together and we came up with an action plan. And that's what we started to work with. Once again, we didn't do it perfectly, and but we were of a mutual understanding of what our goals were.
Yeah. My wife and I also went through the FPU university. We took the DVD version. But
yeah, but we did too.
Yeah, but to be very honest with you, we've not been able to stuck with it all these years. We know that this is something we need to do and we work towards it, achieving it every single month, but we've not been able to go by step by step, but we've been able to learn a lot of things that we've applied in our marriage, and it saved us a lot of time and a lot of money as we've gone through the years, because there were some months that if we hadn't had an emergency fund, we didn't know how we were going to survive, and having that emergency fund was something that really helped us to be able to move forward with our finances.
Definitely. And I don't want to make it seem as if we stuck with it 100%. However, we had a mutual understanding of what we were trying to accomplish. And that goes a long way, just like you said.
Yeah. During your first year, I know there are a lot of exciting moments that whenever couples sit down to talk about or to just reminisce about the past few years that they've been married, they look to it and laugh and, have some fun time around it. With you guys, did you have any funny or exciting moment that when you look back with your wife today, you guys both sit down and laugh and be like, wow, this is what we used to do, or this is what we used to fight over, but now we don't do that anymore because we've grown and matured as a married couple?
Man, fun moments that we look back to. I'm going to stick along the same theme of the financial thing. One of the things that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, that I started my online stuff. And in terms of my podcast and my blogging and my online business, which I'm doing full time right now. When I first started, I went through a kind of an interesting stage because, I started, building this online business and things started to go relatively well. But what wasn't going well was the fact that, okay, I was so now invested in what I was doing with my business. So I'm working full time. And I'm running this business that's pretty much almost full time. But then at a certain point, it's kind of like, oh man, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not even spending time with my wife. What's that about? So we really had to go through this stage where it was kind of like a reshifting of priorities. And it caused for me to literally stop my business at one point and had to figure out, how am I going to do what I'm doing? And how am I going to do this in a way that, my relationship with my wife isn't suffering? And that's kind of this thing that we kind of struggled with at various stages in our relationship. And even now, we have a son now. it's gotten really hard to kind of balance everything, and I had to make some drastic decisions. That's not necessarily a funny moment, but it was kind of like a rocky period that we went through that we had to figure out how to navigate, and now we're kind of figuring that out, and it's going much better. Once again, not funny, but it's definitely something that I've learned a lot from.
Can you share with us some of the strategies or techniques that you guys used for you to be able to spend more time with your family and not be devoting almost all your time to your online businesses?
So some of the things that I did, well, first of all, as I said, I kind of stopped what I was doing online because I knew I had to do something drastic. So I went from one extreme to the other end is not an extreme, but I went to not spending any time on my business at all. But then I went to thinking about how I can structure my business in a way that's more efficient. So I started to get help with my business. So I wasn't the one that's doing everything. I got other people to help me with the things that I could get other people to help me with. And I just made a more conscious effort that, listen, I need to spend time with my wife. More recently, when it got kind of to an extreme, because I was a university professor and I was working on my PhD, and I was doing my online business, which consists of two businesses. I had to make the drastic decision of leaving my job. And I did that about 3 months ago, and now I have significantly more time to spend with my family. So it's just a matter of making some difficult decisions, and those are some of the decisions that I've had to make.
Wow, that's a lot of decisions that you had to make, especially choosing between a business that provides income to support your family and choosing to spend time with your family. But I know with a lot of husbands out there, the family comes first. And if you're valuing money over your family, I don't think it really speaks well of where your priorities lie. I don't know whether you agree with me on that.
Oh, I agree 100%. It's the reason why I left my job, because, I said that my family was the most important, but really, if you look at my time, that's not what you saw. I couldn't allow that to continue because of how important family is to me. When I came to America to go to university, what I wanted to be was a neurosurgeon. And then I had conversations with a number of kids of neurosurgeons, and they all told me the same thing, that they don't even know who their dad is because he spent so much time away. At least that was the gist of what they were saying. From one day to the next, it was like, all right, well, that's not what I'm doing. And I changed my mind completely, and I never wanted to be a neurosurgeon again because of how important family values is for me. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, I also agree with that too. With your first year, as you guys got married, you've been moving along. Right now, you've been married for over 8 years. Are there any things that you guys do together so you can grow together as a married couple?
We spend time with each other.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. What we try to do is we try to have a date night once a week. Now, this is something that we started when we got married. And then we had a son.
I know what that is.
and when we did, that just threw everything in every direction. And our date nights fell off significantly. I don't remember the last time we had a date night. Well, actually, we had one a few weeks ago, but we have not been doing it consistently. And that's something that we definitely need to get back to. So just being conscious about that, spending time with each other. The same thing with my son. I spend approximately 4 hours with my son every day now that I left my job. It's the same concept. It's just being intentional about spending time with each other. It's sitting down and having conversations without social media and without all of the stuff that's going on. We sit down on the couch. On Friday evenings, that's when that typically happens. We just sit down on the couch and we kind of debrief what's going on with you, what's going on with me, share, and talk about difficult things, talk about shallow things, talk about whatever. I think that is such a vital part of a relationship.
Thank you very much for giving us all this information. I know it's something a lot of people don't take it into consideration, especially spending that much time with their spouse. I know right now there are a lot of people who would say do date nights, but I think with the date nights, even it could be just spending time together at home, sitting down on a couch, just like you said, and then talking with each other, seeing where you guys are and where you want to go together as a married couple.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know you guys have been married for over 8 years. is there any resource apart from Financial Peace University that you guys do together to help you in your marriage, or that has really impacted your marriage, especially when you're going through the adjustments and through the difficult times?
I guess the thing that's in my mind right now is this whole parenting thing. And that's such a huge thing. I mean, that can cause a lot of problems in marriage. It can cause a lot of issues. And for us, part of what we've done is just being intentional about reading books. And one of the books that we've been reading recently would be Baby Wise. And it gives a lot of tips in terms of how to parent your kids and so on, and do it in a way that you're being as efficient as possible, especially in the early stages, so you can help them to sleep well at night and do all the things that you want to kind of go through. That book was very good. There's a book on intimacy in marriage that's called Sheet Music. That's also an excellent resource that I would recommend. Besides that, also talking to other married couples. So you're doing this podcast right now. I think this is a great thing that, people need to be listening to stuff like this, because you're getting advice from other people that have done it. And that has been huge for me. Just talking, learning from what others are doing. That doesn't mean that because something is working for someone else, it has to work for you. But at least you're getting an idea of different perspectives. That has been huge.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories. Before we end our conversation today, is there any lesson or advice that you wish you had known before or during your first year of marriage?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me that I've learned is not to try to change your partner. When you marry that person, you made a decision, a conscious decision to accept that person as they are, not as you want them to be. And I think a lot of issues arise because, once again, we have expectations of our spouse. And when they don't meet those expectations, we expect them to change to meet those expectations. Not realizing that, no, it's not their responsibility to change. It's my responsibility to accept them, to love them in this relationship. So I think that for me has been huge. And that's something, whenever I know someone that's getting married, that's the advice I give them. Don't expect the person to change. Accept the fact that you are making a commitment to love this person, to support this person, regardless of who they are, because you've already accepted who they are.
Thank you very much, Leslie, for giving us this advice. I know our listeners are going to apply in their marriages. I know there are couples who are going through this right now as they are listening to us talking about your first year of marriage. And this lesson that you've shared with us is something that is really going to help them improve their marriage.
Well, I'm glad to share with you. Thank you so much for having me on there. And for anyone that's listening, I wish you all the best in your marriage. It is a challenge, but it's supposed to be a challenge. So just take the challenge and live up to it.
Yeah. So Leslie, I know there are listeners who might want to contact you or who might want to look into some of the projects you're working on, like your biology blog or your Become a Blogger blog and your podcast. Can you share a little insight into those and how best our listeners can get in touch with you or any of these projects that you're working on?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is by going to becomeablogger.com. That's my main blog. That's where I spend most of my energy. So that would be the place to go. And from there, you can find out about anything else that I'm doing.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much again, Leslie, for sharing your first year experience. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners are also thankful for you sharing your experience with us today.
You are very much welcome.
Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.